If I could be immune to expectations, reviewing every game fairly would be way easier. It's impossible not to let anticipation build up like a snowball the more people around you praise a game or keep telling how you need to play it. I'm guilty of doing that all the time with my own final thoughts anyway, and I'm not going to stop, nor should anyone stop. Those are honest feelings when we're passionate about something. Ori is a game I never heard anyone say anything bad about. My approach when picking a game from a series I never played is to expect something I can have fun with and nothing more. So my expectations with Ori weren't low, but I didn't buy it expecting a masterpiece, regardless of what people say. I think that was a good approach for playing Ori and the Blind Forest. My feelings about the game as a whole, if you're curious about it, just keep watching. I only expected a cute story, which to be fair, there is, but it goes really heavy for sensitive players. And I mean that in a positive way. You control Ori, a guardian spirit who fell from a great spirit tree in the forest of Nibel during a storm as a newborn. Ori is found and raised by Naru, a creature who's been living in the forest, until a strange cataclysm causes the forest to die over time and Naru eventually collapses from starvation. When Ori is forced to explore and survive the forest on their own, they find an orb of light that is able to speak to them and begins to guide Ori on a journey to restore the balance of Nibel and revive the forest. The plot is told a lot more through visuals and music than through words. There is some narration and dialogue going on, but they are very minimal and spaced out. If I had a nitpick about the narrative is that there are a few instances where the dialogue felt completely unnecessary, just to explain the context of things the cutscenes and animations were already exposing. I think any kid old enough to progress in this game can figure out what's happening without words. The most impactful emotional scenes in this game have no dialogue. I would have liked the narrative more if they axed the conversations entirely, but I understand that's a hard ask in a Metroid style game. Players need the detailed context of what their next objective is. If you're not immune to touch moments, you're going to fall in love with the story. I didn't expect to be impressed by the visuals. Vector style animation is something that I usually can't stand. It has its place depending on the kind of art style, but it rarely looks organic and turns me off from playing games or watching anything immediately. Now Ori does some of that with a few enemies and objects, but most of the time you're not going to notice because they use a lot of animation frames. The end result is super fluid and gives characters like Ori themselves a hand-drawn animation look. It's impressive stuff. More impressive still is the work they put in the background detail. Anytime you walk into some kind of clearing, you're in for an amazing view or beautiful light shows that you can only see in a place like Nibel. This game often looks gorgeous and its art style will age like fine wine. The heavy load of visual spectacle does come with a big caveat. There were a few times I couldn't tell if a thorn on platform was in the foreground or the background, because there isn't always enough contrast between the two. And when you need to engage in any kind of combat, the fireworks show that ensues can make it easy to lose track of where Ori or enemy projectiles are. This made me hate more and more using science flames to fight. Thankfully, there are other ways to dispose of enemies, so let's talk about that next. I don't like using this term, so this will be the last time you hear me say in this review. Ori and the Blind Forest can be described as a Metroidvania. There's nothing Castlevania about it though. You move around, jump to reach platforms, and shoot flames to attack enemies. More means to attack get unlocked later. Nibel is one large 2D map split into connected areas that have to explore and find your way to the next objective. The game will highlight where the next destination is, so you know what area or direction to focus on, but it's up to you to find your way there. It's not hard at all to find your way, but backtracking can be a little tiresome, with paths being a tangled mess that's hard to memorize and require you to open the map every 10 seconds. Naturally, the forest is also full of optional upgrades for your health and energy meters. It's always good to have more health to survive longer, of course, but energy is super valuable. There are very few save points in the game in form of warp gates to unlock, but the game is designed to kill you a lot. A lot. There is a death count in the pause menu, and unless you're really freaking good, it will be close to, if not past the number 100 by the time you beat the game. Backtracking from save points far apart to try not dying during a tricky and long platforming sessions would not be fun. That's why you can use energy to create Soul Link. Soul Link are save points you can create almost anywhere. This feature is awesome because it should let you judge where would be a good checkpoint, and suddenly dying over and over in a section that's giving you trouble is 100 times less frustrating. Making a Soul Link makes the previous one disappear, so you still need to use it carefully. Until you unlock abilities to make energy easier to restore and cheaper to use, it's also important to be conservative about it. Yes, there are abilities to learn which cost ability points. It's the closest thing to leveling up in this game since destroying enemies fills your ability point gauge slightly. However, the best and fastest way to gain ability points is just exploring and collecting ability point spheres around Nibel. No grinding necessary. Abilities are unlocked in save points and are split into 3 lists, following an ordered niche, so long as you unlock the necessary story upgrade to learn that ability. Things like the ability to glide, stomp down, or freely climb up and down walls are upgrades you get by progressing through the story. The ability to spend points on only supplement all the moves Ori can use, like adding a double or triple jump, making Science Flame stronger or decreasing the amount of damage Ori takes. Combining the ability tree with the story unlockables was a brilliant idea that provides a really satisfying sense of progression over the course of your playthrough, and extra safety nets to tone down the potential difficulty. With all that said, I'm afraid I wasn't the biggest fan of the level design. Ori and the Blind Forest's second half suffers from a design approach that was a little too common back in the Xbox 360 era of high challenge indie games. Spikes, or in this case, thorns, are everywhere. Thorns in the ground, in the walls, in the ceilings. Many of the harder sections in the second half of the game involve navigating through tight, thorn-covered platforms and shafts. This doesn't always mean you die instantly, but more often than not, you will. And if not thorns, lasers. If not lasers, lava. You unlock the required story upgrades to maneuver through all of that, but it doesn't make this type of level design any less unappealing to me. The game doesn't feature boss fights in the traditional sense, instead having these escape sequences after key story segments. They are exciting and can also be a visual spectacle. The problem is the spectacle part can sometimes get in the way of the point of frustration. The game's camera is sometimes used to add to that cinematic feel to those sections, at the cost of delaying your view what you actually need to see to avoid getting killed. This annoyed the heck out of me, the final escape sequence. I still have to say, at the end of the day, the Soul Link feature and the limited attempts the game gives you for the escape sessions makes it a far more forgiving game than the real hardcore indie platformers out there. So the parts that get you killed are usually no more than 10 seconds away, and getting over them is just a matter of being persistent. The sooner you realize the more difficult sections should be treated more as puzzles rather than a test of Twitch platforming skills, the sooner you will gain the confidence to reach the end of the game. If you really need to, there is always the easy difficulty option. Ori and the Blind Forest is one of those games you go for the art style and visuals, get hooked by the music and stay for the gameplay. It has a score full of emotional power that sounds a lot more dynamic than it really is. Something about the way the background music transition is done makes everything sound like a really long track playing and seamlessly transforming itself. Sometimes you don't really notice the music itself, but that feels like it's by design. You'll be very aware of it every time you're supposed to. The soundtrack complements the story a lot better than any of the text. Overall, I think it's a very melancholic soundtrack. If you think it sounds too sappy and ambient, you might end up turning the music off. I can recognize a good game from a bad one even if I have complaints about it. A masterpiece? I don't see it. A really good Metroid style game with distinct art style and music identity? Absolutely. I think I can recommend this to two kinds of players. Players who like challenging games and huge fans of Metroid style games. This is a fairly short game, but you're still going to backtrack a lot, especially if going for all upgrades. I'm also going to recommend it for people who like what they see but are afraid of difficult games. The Soul Link feature makes this a really good game to help you get over that fear, because trying again and again comes with very little punishment. I'm not seeing myself playing this ever again. I didn't love it. The grievances with the escape sequence and the visual pollution when dealing with enemies prevent me from enjoying the game as much as I wanted. Still, Ori and the Blind Forest is a game that deserves respect. All the makings of a game that rejects mediocrity are here, and if anything, it's guaranteed to be a memorable little spectacular journey. Ori and the Blind Forest is available on Nintendo Switch, PC, and Xbox. All three platforms run this game well, and I can vouch for the Switch version. Have a nice day, and thank you very much for watching.